continued reading of Letters to New Pastors. A friend sent me a copy of a poem recently. I don't know what inspired him to do that, but the timing was, I think, providential. It was a poem I already knew well and loved. When it arrived, I was leaving to preach at a chapel service in a seminary on the other side of the country. They asked me to preach from a biblical text of my choosing, but they particularly wanted me to reflect on Christian worship. I spent much of my flight rethinking the sermon I had prepared. I ended up rewriting it. Excuse me. The poem is titled Church Going, and it's written by Philippe Larkin. It tells something of a story. The narrator of the poem has wandered into an empty church. He muses on what happens in this building and wonders what it might be like in some distant future time when no one uses churches anymore for the purposes they were built for, and all have forgotten what those purposes were. He wonders what might happen if someone like him wandered into a long-abandoned church building and tried to figure out what people did in such places, standing in the midst of matting and seats and stone and little books. The organ and the tense, musty, unignorable silence brood God knows how long. The narrator concludes that even an uninformed visitor would discern that the church building was a serious house on serious earth, and this much, at least, never can be obsolete, since someone will forever be surprising a hunger in himself to be more serious and gravitating with it to this ground, which he once heard was proper to grow wise in. Preaching that is fit remembers its serious intent. Something of real consequence hangs in the balance when the preacher mounts the pulpit and stands at the communion table. Perhaps what most hangs in the balance is the preacher's soul. What is it that John Donne says in the 13th of his divine poems? What if this present were the world's last night? Mark in my heart, O soul, where thou dost dwell. In some sense, every sermon partakes of that strangely apocalyptic, strangely eschatological compulsion to imagine if this sermon is all that remains in the ledger of my life and every other word is blotted out, what does my life have to say? Eschatological. Maybe this all sounds a bit too high blown, but when I step into the pulpit, I want to remember what, or rather who, brings me there. This is serious business. Well, when I start quoting Donne, I know I've flown a bit too high for my own meager abilities.